Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Tyrone back with Tech Life. And what you're seeing on screen is from T Mobile's newsroom. It is the Q4 earnings and outlook for 2024. So I'll leave a link to that in the description for those of you who may have not seen it. So, what I wanted to discuss in more detail in this video is something that was discussed during T Mobile's earnings call. Actually, it was fairly at the beginning during the Q&A, and John Fryer gave a bit more color and detail on the expansion in terms of market share and how much T-Mobile is growing in small market rural areas. So he stated that in a span of 9 months, they grew 1 full percent. So they went from 16.5 to 17.5% market share. So today, as it stands, or as of this fourth quarter earnings call, T-Mobile now has 17.5% market share in small market rural areas, well on their way of getting to the 20% by the end of 2025. So if they can maintain the same type of pace by September of 2024, they should get to 18.5%. And then 9 months after that, they should be right around their, 19.5. So they will likely get to right around 20% by the end of 2025. In some cases, depending, the region, they may have to be a bit more aggressive to accelerate. But I think they will get to the 20% quite easy. Now, here is something that I wanted to talk about as well and kind of tie into that growth. So T-Mobile continues to grow. And if you look at their churn, it came in at 0.96%. And the fact that they still got to 934,000 postpaid net adds, that just gives you an idea of the type of volume that comes into to T-Mobile. To still be close to a 1% churn and post that high of growth, that means there's tons of traffic coming through all T-Mobile channels, the calling queue, the sales team, the chat, the stores. I mean, there's just a ton of volume coming into the T-Mobile sales channels. So this is very interesting, right? We are still trying to figure out how T-Mobile's churn was as high as it was during Q4. And a part of that, right, I'm sure a good amount of that comes from the network, right? Network issues. And that'll also tie into the small market rural areas. So T-Mobile grew 1 full percent in 9 months. That's hard to do for a lot of companies. Usually, you grow like 0.2, 0.3, 0.4 every like 3 or 4 months, right? T-Mobile grew 1 full percent in 9 months. So they had some real acceleration in these small markets and rural areas. Now, what's there to note about the small market and rural areas? That used to be T-Mobile's weakest link when it came to network. They were horrible in small market rural areas. And the churn that we saw them post could be indication that the network might still not be up to par in those parts. It's very possible. It's very possible that some of that churn also now is trickling into the small market and rural areas. Before, T-Mobile really didn't conduct business in those parts. So most of the churn that they posted came from the metros and suburban areas. They never competed in small market rural areas. But now they got 17.5% share and they're competing. So some of that churn is now factoring and trickling out into that small market and rural area where the network still may need a lot of work. And I've mentioned this in previous videos over the years that if T-Mobile has service in a certain town, they got, who knows, 2, 3, 4 sites up and running. And now they're competing, right? That customer joins T-Mobile, but now that customer travels to, relatives, Aunt Susie, 45 miles away. And as soon as they leave that town that T-Mobile just had, 2, 3, 4, 5 towers turned on, 20 miles outside the city, the limits of the town, well, all of a sudden that customer now is roaming. And that could lead to a bad experience. So is T-Mobile overselling the network in those parts? They probably are, but not from a perspective that they can't handle the traffic in that specific town. They're overselling it because they didn't expand and build out within like a 50-mile radius of that town. It's very possible. I still see it on the maps. I see, okay, they got all this magenta here. They got this darker magenta within 41. But then as I go down, I'm seeing a bunch of roaming still, which leads to a worser experience than what the customer probably had previous. More than likely, they had AT&T or Verizon, and AT&T and Verizon very likely had extensive coverage across that entire footprint that they travel, where they go visit a relative, take the family to a trip, whatever the case may be. AT&T and Verizon likely provided them with extensive coverage. Now they're trying T-Mobile. They got caught up in the marketing hype. They're trying to cheaper price. They think they got a better deal. And then they're traveling out to those same places and the network is not up to par. So those customers aren't going to hesitate much. If it's bad enough, they will return to what they know, which is their previous carrier worked in those areas, so they will return back. So that could also factor into some of that churn that we saw. And we'll see how that pans out in Q1, Q2, Q3 of 2024. If we continuously see an elevated churn, then I can make my opinion and the argument and the debate that, hey, look, we now have to factor in the small market and rural areas into that churn, and it looks like the network is still not up to par in those parts. It is a very strong possibility that is the case. And if we see T-Mobile up, 5, 6, 7 basis points in Q1, Q2, Q3, then I can make that argument like, hey, look, I can come back to this video and say, look, the small market and rural areas, they're growing that very fast and aggressive, but the churn is continuously up. So some of those customers seem to be returning at higher rates than T-Mobile may like. So then, the whole Capex comes into play. If you guys saw that longer video that I made, I wasn't happy with the lower Capex, because if they don't spend up to the 9.4 and they come in at the 8.6 billion, I mean, they're spending, significant amounts lower, almost $1 billion lower versus what they spent in 2023. Now, if they come in at the 9.4 billion, which is the higher end of the Capex, in 23 they spent 9.8, so they would be about 400 million less, which is still a significant amount, but better than being, below almost 1 billion. All of that can be factored in. Now, again, I will bring that up again. T-Mobile's 2.5 build is significantly completed. That's ramping down. So we really need more color on what they're going to use that Capex for. Most of their sites now have 2.5. I mean, there shouldn't be many, many more sites out there that's still needed. And the ones that have been upgraded and modernized and didn't get 2.5, those sites were not meant to get it to begin with. So now what are they going to do? Are they building more sites? One can assume that they will continue to expand this year. They will start to possibly deploy the small cells a bit more aggressively, put more focus on that. Still got the C-band and the DoD. And then maybe they take some of that Capex and put it towards the fiber to the home, right? That fiber to the home model is capital light. Maybe $1 billion, $2 billion they put into that. It's all possible, but we did not get any of that at the earnings call, and the Q&A just sucked. So hopefully at these conferences that are up and coming, hopefully we get some more color around that. I would really, really like somebody to ask just a simple question like, hey, whoever it is, Peter Osvaldik, Mike Sievert, whoever's at the conference, start off the question with, hey, look, we really didn't get any guidance for the Capex of 2024. We didn't see any networking statistics. We didn't see any, pops of C-band that you plan on reaching. What are you going to use the Capex for in 2024? That's a very simple question. And hopefully we don't get a non-answer, because a lot of the times when there's a good question, it turns into a non-answer and a deflecting answer. So we'll see what happens. T-Mobile now 17.5% market share in rural. They're gaining more customers each and every day. Rural distribution, more stores are opening. If the pace is maintained, they should be at 18.5% by September. So we'll see what the churn looks like. But the fact that they're close to 1% is a bit alarming. So make sure you guys stay tuned for more. Like, share, subscribe if you're new. Follow my social media outlets for more. And I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.